All right. I understand we're live and ready to go. Good morning and welcome. My name is Lorena Gonzalez. I'm the Assemblywoman representing the 80th Assembly District and Chair of the Assembly Select Committee on Latina Inequities. I want to thank you all for joining us today for our second informational hearing by the Select Committee. Today we'll hear from experts and Latina professionals that have worked in Hollywood and will share testimony on their experiences and challenges they faced as Latinas. We'll also hear from updates from the California Film Commission, the Motion Picture Association, and the National Hispanic Media Coalition about any existing efforts to promote diversity and address inequities Latinas and other underrepresented groups may face in this industry. Before we get started, a couple of housekeeping things. Due to COVID-19 pandemic and compliance with existing protocols, there are limited space in the hearing room for members. We have some on the line as well as some in the room. If you're in a hearing room, please adhere to social distancing requirements, maintain at least 6 feet apart. All individuals in the room must wear a mask, and we will have 2 panels today with a period of time for member questions and discussion after each panel. Public comment will be taken after the second panel, and the hearing will end by 11 a.m. If you'd like to provide public comment, please call the toll-free number at 877-692-8957. The access code is 1315-4202. This number can also be found on the Assembly's website under today's events. I'd like to thank my colleagues who are here today and to those who are joining virtually. I'm looking forward to the discussion. Despite Latinas making up 20% of the population in California, we continue to be excluded and erased and misrepresented in movies and on TV. When we are shown, it's often as a supporting character, not the lead, a best friend, possibly a prostitute, a drug addict, or somebody in a gang. When Latinas are missing from shows and movies or only depicted in certain ways, their contributions to American culture can be overlooked and unseen. When Latinas are missing behind the scenes as writers, directors, showrunners, and crew members, this impacts what stories are told and the shapes of how they are told. With that, I'd like to invite our committee members who are here to give opening remarks if they'd like. Suzette? Oh, Assemblywoman.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair, for hosting this very important topic on this very important committee. I'm particularly excited about this conversation as Vice Chair on the Arts, Entertainment, Sports, and Tourism and Internet Media Committee. It is a topic that I think me and my Chairwoman Sharon Quirk Silva, Assemblywoman Sharon Quirk Silva, are particularly interested in. And in my district, we have a growing Hollywood industry, production, films, movie ranches, and I'm excited to talk about this topic. It was particularly as the pandemic has deeply impacted my community and Latinas in Hollywood and in the industry. So excited to talk about this topic today. Thank you.
Thank you, and good morning to everyone. And again, thank you to our Chairwoman, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, for putting together such an important discussion when it comes to representation. I want to share just a few statistics as we kick it off. In 2019, the USC Annenberg Inclusion Initiative published a report examining the prevalence of Latino characters on screen across 1,212 top grossing films from from 2007 to 2018. And what the report found is incredibly outstanding. Like, out of the top 100 grossing domestic features in the past 12 years, Latino characters make up only 4.5% of all speaking roles and named characters. Across the 100 top grossing films of 2018 alone, 47 films were completely missing Latino characters, 70 films were missing Latinas, 95 movies did not feature a Latino character with a disability, 98 were missing Latinos from the LGBTQ community, documenting another key finding, the erasure of Latino roles in popular movies. Only 4% of directors and 3% of producers in these movies were Latinos. Only one Latina director worked across the 1,200 films examined. 47% of the 1,200 movies in the report sampled completely erased Latino-speaking characters. I find these findings to be incredibly troubling, considering the Latinos across the United States are the fastest growing demographic. In California alone, Latinas are the top population in the state. And so this initiative for Unseen Latinas, especially when it comes to representation, where we see ourselves in art, in films, in movies, is incredibly impactful in terms of how our stories are told and who tells our stories. So I'm excited to hear from the panelists and really have a robust conversation on how we, in many ways, change the narrative for Unseen Latinas. Thank you.
Thank you. And I do see we have some members also virtually that I'd like to go to if they want to comment, starting with the chair of our California Latino Legislative Caucus, Senator Maria Elena Durazo.
Hello, Assembly Member and everyone who's on this call. You know, this committee, I'm so proud that the Latino Caucus is helping to sponsor the incredible work of the Latinas, Unseen Latinas Initiative. And that's because of the leadership of Assemblywoman Gonzalez, who told us and reminded us that we have got to see what is the Latina experience in California and what do we do about it. So first identify what are the issues, quantify them, and ultimately we have to get to the point of resolving these big inequities. We don't want our daughters and granddaughters and the future generations of Latinas to face the same hurdles we are. And I'm so proud of the work of your committee, Assemblywoman, and the advocacy of everyone in our community, because that's the way we're going to make the change that we need. It's great to see so many people inspired and motivated by these hearings. We had previous meetings, discussions, hearings on overcoming barriers to employment and advancement opportunities, the economic and health impact on Latinas during COVID-19, that looked into law and policy that need to be changed. I look forward to the testimony today on Unseen Latinas in Hollywood. I'm really eager to hear from these amazing panelists because they represent thousands of Latinas, past, present, and future, that will help make Hollywood and the entertainment, have made Hollywood and the entertainment business successful. Some of our most well-known names like Rita Moreno and Jennifer Lopez or director Patricia Cardoso are part of our history as Latinas, but there's so many behind the scenes Latinas. They deserve the same recognition and our strong support for economic and professional well-being. So thank you, Chair. Thank you to the staff for this great work and for the panelists. Muchas gracias, hermanas.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Committee Member Ash Kalra, Assembly Member from San Jose.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. It's an honor to be part of this committee, especially given the community I represent here in San Jose. And on this issue specifically, it's one I think that we're seeing a reckoning, I think in a good way, in Hollywood regarding representation. Certainly as a member of the API caucus, there's been a lot of conversations there, and clearly when it comes to African-American representation as well, and not just in quantity, but in quality and actual representation. And I think that when we look at the issue of the unseen Latinas, that's part of it as well. It's not just the number of Latinas that we see in critical roles or important roles, but how they're being depicted. And I think that we all have to take account to the role that we play in that. And the community I represent, I know this is an issue that matters to them, especially being here in Silicon Valley, where the issue of unseen Latinas plays out in so many different ways here in Silicon Valley. And so we're really having this conversation, especially being the capital of the entertainment industry here in California, is an important one. I want to thank you, Chair, to the members for this important conversation. I look forward to hearing from the panelists.
Thank you. I do want to point out, yesterday I had a great conversation with the chairman of our Congressional Hispanic Caucus, Joaquin Castro, congressman from Texas, who is also on the national level. Our Hispanic Caucus has been taking this issue up, not just for Latinas, but Latinos in general in Hollywood. And so it's great that we're working on this in so many multiple layers. I know he's done some really fantastic, groundbreaking work in really trying to hold folks accountable for our lack of representation. So this should just be seen as an extension of their great work, and we're glad to be able to partner with our federal partners. We're going to go ahead and start our panel, so we'll get through the first few panelists. They'll talk for about 3 minutes, and then we will open it up to questions. We're going to start with Dr. Ana Cristina Ramon, the Director in Research and Civic Engagement at UCLA, and co-author of the annual Hollywood Diversity Report. Please go ahead and begin when you are ready.
Good morning. The work I'll be discussing today is part of a major project on the entertainment industry conducted at UCLA with my co-author, Dr. Darnell Hunt, Professor of Sociology and African American Studies and Dean of Social Sciences. Our research examines race, ethnicity, and gender representation in TV and film and its relationship to the bottom line. Today, specifically, I'll discuss the findings from our film report that we released yesterday and our TV report that we released last fall. Decisions about what types of films to make, how large a budget to assign to them, how they will be marketed, and who will be at the directorial helm are made by Hollywood executives. In 2020, we found that these decisions continue to be dominated by white men. There is almost no Latinx representation, regardless of gender, within the executive suites in Hollywood. Among film executives at the 11 major and mid-major studios, there is no Latinx representation at all. Among TV executives at the 74 studios and networks that we examined, there are no Latinx CEOs and only 2 Latinx executives among senior management, which accounts for less than 1% of the total positions at that level. One is a Latino CFO and the other is a Latina president of content chief creative officer for 7 TV networks within the larger corporation. Among unit heads, there are less than 2% Latinx executives overall. Among those 11 Latinx executives, there are only 5 Latinas that are at the unit head level. Latinxes are also severely underrepresented in front of the camera and behind the camera, as was mentioned earlier. Because the numbers are so low for Latinx actors, there is often not much gender disparity in our findings. Among 184 theatrical and streaming films that were released in 2020, we found that there were only about 5% Latinx leads. A little less than half of them were Latinas. In addition, there were only about 6% Latinx actors who were part of the main cast for the films. And again, a little less than half of them were Latinas. So Latinas were about 2% of the leads and about 3% of the total actors. Among the top theatrical and streaming films, the numbers are worse for Latinx filmmakers and content creators. There were only about 3% Latinx directors and only about 3% Latinx writers, and they were all Latino men. In the 2018-2019 TV season, Latinx leads represented about 6% to 7% of leads in broadcast, cable, and digital platforms. Combining them all together, there were only 15 Latina leads among English language programs across all platforms in our study, which comprise about 3% of the share of leads. In the same television season, Latinx actors who were part of the main cast represented 5% to a little over 6% of all roles in broadcast, cable, and digital platforms. Combining them all together, there were only 78 Latinas who were part of the main cast of English language programs across all platforms in our study, which comprise less than 3% of the share of total actors. So the numbers are dispiriting, but as I'm sure the other panelists will share, there is no lack of talent among Latinas, just a lack of opportunity and a lack of access, which will require a concerted effort to change. Thank you.
Thank you for that overarching picture, Dr. Ramon. It puts it in perspective. Next up, we have Tanya Saracho, creator, showrunner, director of Vida on Stars. When you're ready, Tanya. Can't hear you.
Silent Latinas, no more. Good morning, everyone. I love hearing Dr. Ramon all the time. I hold on to a lot of her findings to shape a lot of what I do. I'll let myself be a case study. I didn't bring numbers. I'll tell you a little bit about myself and things as I see them right now. I was born in Los Mochis, Sinaloa. We moved to McAllen, Texas when I was in junior high and high school. Then I went to Boston University to study theater. Then I moved to Chicago and I was going to be an actor. But when I got there, all the roles that I was that I was going for, like the only line that they had was mostly like just Mr. Johnson. It was those roles. It was stereotyped and just limited roles. So I started my own theater company, an all Latina theater company called Teatro Luna, and we wrote our own stuff. Especially when this happened, it was in the early aughts. It was when the Latin invasion, I don't know what they were calling it, where J-Lo came out with all the stuff. It was like there was, and then the census had come out and they said that we were responsible for like things like 11% of all lipstick like purchases. Like, oh, so let's sell to Latinas. So something was happening in the zeitgeist, where they were sort of turning to look to us. So my theater company did really well, which then I started writing plays myself. I left acting, and that got attention, and then I was very well produced around the country. But even then, in the American theater, I couldn't make a living, even being the most produced Latina playwright in the country. The American theater is also messed up when it comes to equity. So I looked to television, as a lot of my fellow playwrights were doing. So that's when I came over here, and I got staffed in my first show about maids. And that was a harrowing experience. There are some systems in place in Hollywood. I entered as the diversity hire, and I was told the first hour of my first day as a TV writer by one of my coworkers, "You do know you're the diversity hire, right?" And I was like, I didn't. In the theater, there isn't that role, so I didn't know what that meant. And he was like, "Oh, honey." And that "oh, honey" stayed with me, because that "oh, honey" stayed the whole all the months I was working there, because it when I found out what diversity hire meant, it meant that I didn't cost the studio anything. What I heard is you have no value. So I was the only Latina before my sister Gloria Calderon Kellett, showrunner of One Day at a Time, joined the room. I was the only Latina and still had no voice. That was like sort of a great example of how it was the status, of this TV world that I had arrived in. When Gloria did join, as a joke, our boss called us spick and span in the room. And this just happened a few years ago. Yeah. So like that's like the el ámbito that I entered, So I stuck with it because there was money in TV, and because of a series of things, maybe a little prayer and brujeria and La Virgen de Guadalupe, I got my own show, Vida. But I really want to stress that I don't think I would have gotten the show if the executive at Starz, the network that gave me the show, were not named Marta Fernandez. And that, like, we don't have a lot of people inside the castle. We don't have a lot of people championing us, but I did. And so I was able to get my show up with an all Latinx or Latine. I use the term, gender inclusive term, interchangeably. Latinx writing staff. Then by the second season, all Latina directors. By the third season, all Latina and Hispanic editors too. But I would not have been allowed to do that had it not been for Marta, Fernandez, which is like in the formula was just there, just with the Z at the end of her last name. It was a blessing. So then because of that, because I saw the strength that and just the beautiful work and familia that happens when we are together that way and we build our own stories. We're at the helm of our own stories, and looked around that a lot of our stories were being told for us, and that is sort of a cultural Monsanto when we consume versions of ourselves produced by the dominant culture. Then I go and join a room, that, and calls me spick and span, because it's all a trickle down effect in that way. I want to tell you about a few things that I just, that I've started. We wrote I started in all Latina chingonas. I don't know how else to say. Like most of the Latina showrunners in Hollywood Untitled Latinx Project, we call it. And we wrote an open letter to Hollywood demanding no stories about us without us and making other demands. We're going to say asks now so that they don't get scared. But like, we're going to go in there into the studios and sort of be like, hey, let's take the temperature of how you're doing. So that my group is 18 of us. We're going to go in there and sort of like, okay, I stopped saying demands, but like asks. And then I also, with my, have a deal with UCP. I started an ignition lab and talent incubator for Latinas. And I'm very excited about that because they're like actual, the problem also with, especially with creators and writers, is that it's hard for us to enter the industry. And it's hard for us to move levels. Sometimes we get stuck, and this incubator sort of is going to try to address those systemic problems. And I also co-founded the Writers Access Support Program for underrepresented groups trying to enter the industries. Also, the script coordinators and writers assistants are the entry level point, but we don't have un tío rico that is in Hollywood, to give us that gig. So we're also trying to help with entry level stuff. And that's just from noticing that, that spick and span like dynamic permeates throughout the industry. I'll stop then, but I'm excited to hear what everybody else has to say.
I think we were excited to hear everything you had to say. That was a tremendous case study, if you will, but that fascinating experiences. I'm glad you're there doing this hard work. Next, we are going to hear from Judalina Nira, a writer and co-executive producer on the forthcoming spinoff of Amazon's The Boys.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Thank you guys so much for giving me this time to beat the drum about an issue I am insanely passionate about, Latina representation in the TV writers' room. I could not have come after a more wonderful and more brilliant talent. Tami Sriracha has been trailblazing for us, and so I give her kudos. I send her love. My name is Judalina Nira. I am Puerto Rican, so I'm not going to apologize for talking fast. This is just part of my cultural heritage. So the quick 411 on me. I am a very proud Writers Guild of America member and have been a working television writer and producer for the past 8 years. Mostly, I am known for my work in the superhero space. If you or your kids have watched The Flash on CW, you might recognize my name. But what I am most proud of is that I am the co-organizer, along with my fellow TV writer, Diana Mendez, of a group called La Lista. La Lista is a networking group for working Latina TV writers. You can find us at our very obvious website, latinatvwriters.com. Diana and I launched La Lista about 5 years ago, initially just as a brunch group where working Latina TV writers could get together and could network and drink and vent. And when we started La Lista, there were 38 of us. That's right, 5 years ago, there were less than 40 credited Latina TV writers working across our entire industry. Every single one of us fit in one backyard. Now, fortunately, since then, we have seen some progress, and the number of working Latina writers has quadrupled. Today, La Lista has about 167 members, and while that is not nearly enough, it's a start. So, as an organizer for our small but mighty Latina TV writer community, I am very often asked, how can we create more representation for Latinas in TV writers' rooms? And there very often tends to be this desire to want to create new fellowships and programs to train aspiring Latina writers. And to that, I say, yes, absolutely do it. Every bit helps. But those types of pipeline programs for entry-level underrepresented writers, they exist now. And I know this because it's how I got my start. I literally would not be a TV writer today if it wasn't for the National Hispanic Media Coalition's series Scriptwriters Fellowship, nhmc.org/writers. I know you're going to hear from Brenda in a bit. I cannot sing the praises enough of the NHMC. Every year they foster a new class of aspiring Latinx TV writers. And if you have money to give them, give it to them so they can train even more. In part because of programs like the NHMC's and similar pipeline programs at NBC, ABC, CBS, and elsewhere, we are seeing this huge increase in Latinas who are getting their foot in the door, 30% of La Lista's members are staff writer levels. That means 1/3 of our group are writers who have 1 year of room experience under their belt. But the problem is, like Tanya mentioned earlier, these same writers, they're not breaking through the ranks. And most of all, they're not being put in charge. Last year, there were 493 scripted television shows. 7 were created or co-created by a Latina. Latinas are 9% of the US population. We are barely 1% of television showrunners. And this matters so much because in TV, the showrunner is the equivalent of a CEO. Showrunners weigh in on the hiring of actors, crew, and they hire every other writer in that writer's room. As evidenced by Tanya Serrato and her trailblazing Vida, the single best way to increase Latina representation in the writer's room and on screen and even on the crew is to put Latinas in a position where they can hire other Latinas. Put us in charge. Now, this is something that only the studios and the networks have the power to do, but there is a wide range of ways that they can accelerate doing it. They can put more Latinas under overall deals or under first look deals, getting first access to a Latina writer's original ideas. They can offer more blind script commitments specifically to Latinas, basically promising to buy a to be agreed upon story. They can simply commit to tripling the number of Latina created stories they buy, and then commit to putting those stories on the air. I know that a lot of the stats that we're going to be sharing today can be incredibly disheartening. So I just want to say that from firsthand experience through La Lista, we can effect change in just 5 years. And so I want to thank you all for starting this conversation. I'm optimistic for what we can do with the next 5 years.
Wow, what a powerhouse group. This is awesome. A lot to digest, but a lot of hope too. Next up, we're going to hear from Terry Velasquez Owen, an IATSE Local 706 union journeyman hairstylist. I'm sorry we use the term journeyman still, but that is the official term. Journey woman, who has worked on 49 TV shows and films. Please begin when you're ready, Terry.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. And wow, what an amazing group of women we have. Incredible. I want to thank Assembly Member Lorena Gonzalez and the committee members for the invitation to appear today. Yes, I've been working in the entertainment industry for 30 years, over 30 years, starting out at the LA Opera and the LA Music Center. And I've been called the journeyman hairstylist for Local 706. I've also been working with thousands of crew members like myself who you have never heard of, but whose work makes what you see on the screen possible. And as a department head, I oversee all the hairstylists on set. I'm a proud example of a Latina who's achieved some success in my industry. Over my 30 years working here in Los Angeles, I have seen a change in Latina, Black, Asian, LGBTQ crew on the set. And I believe the Hair and Makeup Local has done a pretty good job of expanding to a more diverse membership. I'm not usually the only Latina in the hair department. However, where I have seen less change is, like what I'm going to echo what the women before me have said, are the people in charge. That means producers, executives, studio heads, showrunners, the people who do the hiring and decide what gets on the screen. Latin women are generally not the people in charge when it comes to above the line. Some of the barriers I've seen time and time again are the stereotypes that distort the perception of Latinas. Rarely is a Latina seen as the intellectual or the leader of a big corporation or the type A person who's in charge of things. The stereotypes portrayed in film and television need to change. While that's clearly not the only answer to changing our place in America, changing what people see on television and in film will help with real world change. For me personally, of course, there are the microaggressions I deal with day to day. People asking me to translate for their Mexican nanny or their gardener, or complaining about their housekeeper, or jokes about immigrants or a beaner. But there's also times when people step up. On a recent set, one of the crew was complaining about the noise from a construction site next door and said, "Why don't we just call immigration? That'll solve the problem." In that instance, the director and myself, we both spoke up and shot that comment right down. The appropriateness was addressed in that moment. What my years in the industry have led me to believe is that the problem of diversity in Hollywood is not fixed, and we need to continually push to get a seat at the table. My industry reflects the larger problem we face in our society today. In fact, what worries me is that one of the problems that exists right now is that too many people are seeing this debate, the need for change, in black and white. People need to open their eyes to what's happening in that the nuance of diversity is getting lost. We need to remember that people come in a rainbow of colors. We need to remember that diversity can be applied to age, disability, gender, and sexual preference as well. Sometimes it's not so obvious who someone is. And what I mean is that I've had people who ask me to hire someone say, well, that person's not diverse enough, or we want a certain type of person, but they don't have any idea that diversity might be right there looking at them in the face. Latinas often get hurt by this limited attitude, often from executive suites. I know this will seem so strange at this hearing, but we're not seen as representing diversity. And that's not good for the individual or for the change that needs to happen. The kind of worldview, that kind of worldview creates situations where people are afraid or angry with each other. That won't get us where we need to go. We don't want to pit people against each other. That won't get us where we want to go. We need to respect and embrace the new people we must get into this industry, but we also have to respect those who have been here. We've set our sights on inclusion both on the set, but also with the people who greenlight what kind of shows we see and who gets hired. This is a business that is very much built on trust. To get young Latinas into this industry, we're going to need more than people like myself offering them a hand. We need and want everyone to do it. And I believe that means we need to make change in everyone's interest, something to be embraced and not run from. The challenge of change is to make everyone believe in its necessity and greater good. I work in an industry where change happens every day on the set, and I do believe we can get there. Thank you, guys. I appreciate the chance to come before you today. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow. What we're going to do is we're going to pause before the next panel. That was fabulous, and I'm sure everybody has some questions. I'll start with one, and then we'll go ahead and ask the other members what questions, if any, they have. I was struck when people were talking about the programs they've developed to help with diversity, but in a kind of broader sense, can you address your perspective on the diversity programs that studios have? Or are they working? Why or why not? What can be done to improve them? It was interesting to me that or clear to me that some of the examples given were things that you all did yourselves to help lend a hand or to broaden the network. But what are your views, if any, on the diversity programs that the studios have? Any of you?
I'm happy to speak to my experience. I was very fortunate to be able to participate in the NHMC fellowship, but also to do NBC's Writers on the Verge, which is a studio initiative at NBC. And I think they're fantastic, but their numbers of what they're getting, they're getting 2,000, 3,000 applicants each year. And they're fortunate if they have one Latina in each class each year. I know that they know that the real problem with these initiatives within the studio system is that they're great to get you in the door, but then they do not help you to get the second job. And it's why we're seeing in our networking group that 30% of our members are staff writer level. It's because they can't get hired as story editors, which is the second tier up, which is literally double the pay. So if they can come for free or cheap through a studio system, then they're getting work. But then when it requires accountability to, come out of a true budget, the the step up for that diversity is just not there. We're not seeing it to the same extent. I know I have contacts at these different equity, executives. I know that they know this is a problem and it's stuff they're working towards, but it's still an issue.
Thank you.
I came through a different aspect. Like I said, I was a diversity hire. And historically, a lot of people that I've met had to repeat because these diversity hires, they hire you for like the 20 basic weeks, and then they let you go, and then the next year they start with a new diversity hire so that so it doesn't cost them anything. But sometimes, I know people have repeated like 5 times, and it's something that has to be addressed because it's a good program. I would not have gotten in if it hadn't been for it, but there's no like supervision of it, especially culturally, of how it's being enforced in the room. For example, all the how I was talked about or talked to, and that happens across the board. So there are some good programs that are the well-intentioned, but then in practice, it's like you said, like Lina said, like sometimes like they work as an entry, but then there's a block, there's a block there. The programs that I'm my studio, because I feel like you have to shame a little bit and do, especially in this moment and after the summer of reckoning, we have to shame a little bit and be like, because unfortunately, this is what I have to talk to Ana Cristina. We need the numbers to go in there and be like, this is how much we're consuming as Latinas. This is how much we don't have actual numbers for TV. The numbers were released for actors and stuff, but for creators and writers, we actually need that, because right now, I went into my studio as like with a moral imperative of like, you should. It is the right thing, but I don't have numbers to back me, But because the Summer of Reckoning was, I had that, we're having an incubator program that is going to pay the 5 participants the 86K. So blind script deal basically for each one, because that's another thing. Like sometimes we get in there and in these programs and they don't pay you. It's really difficult. So that like that this means respect for the voice, and we just have to get like respect for the voice is money, because that's it's like how we can't eat like sometimes, like these ay, no puedo hablar inglés. These they're not volunteers when you first interns, sorry. These intern programs, sometimes we can't afford, we don't have like parents that can pay for us while we have that year of internship, so like anyway, I don't know what I'm saying, but I'm so excited to be here. Okay, I'll mute.
This is great. Suzette.
Well, first of all, thank you all for such wonderful remarks and insight into what's going on in the industry. And thank you for being a part of paving this road and keeping it on your minds at the forefront of your mind, that we all stand on the shoulders of giants. And when Latinas can stand on other Latinas' shoulders, it's even more vital and important. And you're doing that. So thank you. I also want to tell Ms. Nira, I too am Puerto Rican, so can tend to talk fast. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize and bring up Henry Darrow, who passed away in March and was really a trailblazer in the industry, helping to found the Screen Actors Guild's ethnic committee. And I just wanted to mention him. But I also want to talk a little bit, I'm from Los Angeles. My district is Santa Clarita, growing production industry. I want to talk about the front of this dilemma we're facing, which is the workforce and access to providing a skilled workforce education. Over the past decade, we've seen this push for STEAM education, not just STEM, but science, technology, engineering, arts, and music. How can we support the younger generations in high school and college to really be equipped with the skills to be competitive in the industry? And how did you get into the industry? What did you do? What would you tell other young Latina women who are looking for a place in this industry, whether it's writing, whether it's set building, painting, seamstress, being a caterer? What can they do now? And how can we be supportive?
Could I chime in?
I think, oh,
Oh, sorry. I just wanted to chime in, and then everyone else on the panel can talk about their experiences. But I just wanted to plug the Youth Cinema Project, which is a program that is in California schools, and it's being implemented in other places around the world, actually. But what's great about this program, it's run by the Latino Film Institute, and it is part of the curriculum that is for fourth and fifth graders, and then some students in high school. And so what it is that the students are trained from the beginning of the year to the end of the year to create their own film. So they become filmmakers. And what it has helped is just really helped with their social emotional skills, and just made them more confident. But also what the most important thing is, it's opened their eyes to the entertainment industry. And by the time that they're done with the program, they created a short film that they end up showing at the Latino Film Institute's festival, La Leaf. And so it's just a wonderful experience because it helps them just with their self-esteem and to do well in school. But then also it just shows them that becoming a filmmaker is not some abstract idea, and it's not something that is out of their reach. And so I just wanted to plug that program, and that program could be at every school in California. It just needs more funding. Thanks.
Thanks. I think Terry was going to jump in too.
Yes, I was actually going to echo this same idea in education and arts-based education, and introducing kids at the elementary school level, middle school, high school level, that these kinds of jobs exist. And I got into this business really, really young and really early, and got a handout, because unfortunately this is a business where you don't, hey, where can I put my application? Is someone really you have to be invited. There's no place to sign up for it. Somebody has to bring you in, and somebody brought me in. And I was lucky enough to do 2 mentorships over the pandemic. I was invited to a New York City-based task force where I mentored a woman, and I mentored someone here in Los Angeles as well to try and get into my industry, and what were the steps I took. And I think that mentorships are really important. And if we could put that connection with kids coming out of college, or kids in high school who maybe want to work below the line or above the line, to let them know that these jobs even exist. I grew up in LA, and I didn't even know my job existed, and they're good paying jobs. They're union jobs. They're good paying jobs. And we need to bridge that in education and the workplace. So whether that's with mentorships, internships, making our presence known, and the arts have really suffered over the years in public education. And I think it begins there. We really need to get back to arts-based curriculums. I feel really strongly that is probably our weakest link, is our public education has cut all the arts and funding for the arts. So I think that's a great place to start.
That's a great directive for us, for sure. Wendy, did you have a question?
Yes. Thank you. I would love to hear the experiences of getting into the writer's room. So, it's the challenge, right, to even become the steps that you need to take to even become a showrunner begins to even getting access to the internship to get into the writer's room. Can you share some of those challenges, what you've seen, what those experiences have been? I, many moons ago in a past life, was in a writer's room, and I just found that the bromance and it's very hard for women, and very hard for specifically women of color and Latinas to get into those rooms where other writers are creating and making decisions on what the stories for Latinos and Latinas should look like. And I'm curious what the experiences have been for our panelists.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm sure we're both going to say something. It's so funny because now there's more of us, like Dudalina said, right? Like there's more of us, but there's a resentment that I keep hearing, especially from straight cis white males that are like, "Whoa, they're coming for our jobs." It is so present. It is, and you know who's perpetuating the agents? They're like, "Oh, you didn't get that job because it went diverse," which I hate the term diversity hire. It's an erroneous term. You can't have one thing be diverse, right? But like it's code because they don't want to say Latine or whatever, you know. But I do feel like we are entering, but then we are met with a lot of like microaggressions, but even to enter, because I think that was the question, right? It is not one of those like I can apply for the job situation. You have to have caught fire somehow. So what I mean, like, so either you a pilot you wrote, or a web series you created, or a play, that which was how I entered, catches fire, and then so even if you might be an assistant, you might be, and then you might get a manager, you might get an agent that then submits you for jobs. I mean, the steps to get into a writer's room are so many. You have to get representation. You can't just um, get an interview or whatever for a writer's room position without representation, and then you were competing, you know, and then when you get in, like we told you, like sometimes they don't let you repeat and stuff. So it's I'm sure you have more insight on that. I've sat out the pandemic. I've not like, I've just been writing pilots, and I know that now there's like shorter rooms, so like titles and levels are not as respected. You do, like, a lot of people have to repeat them, but it's really hard to enter, to get in. But I do have to say the talent is out there, not just from our brunch group. I have 500, right? They let me hire a Latina executive for my company, Ojalá, and she reads like 5 scripts a day, and we are out there. Like, the talent is out there. It's just a matter of getting in and getting that support.
Yeah, and just to kind of carry that forward, whenever I meet with aspiring writers, unfortunately, there's no track that I can say, do A, B, C, D, and E, and then you will become a writer, because every person's path is completely different and oftentimes very arbitrary and has so much to do with luck. And there are places where I refer people, like, you know, I oftentimes tell aspiring writers, like, go to the NHMC's website, submit to their TV writing fellowship. That's such a fantastic opportunity to begin networking if you don't already have contacts. The Television Academy, who I'm active with, they also have a great internship program. I highly recommend students apply there, people who are aspiring. But so much of the work that you have to do to break into this industry is work that you're going to do alone in your room. And that is oftentimes the struggle of the writer, is sitting in front of your computer being like, I'm going to write this script and pray and hope that at some point it will get into the hands of someone through contacts I'm going to create, whether that's on Twitter, or by creating content on TikTok, or by launching my own web series on YouTube. And so I just really encourage younger generations to create and to build relationships with the other people around you, and to not be afraid to ask for what you want. If you want to get into a writer's room, ask everyone around you, do you know anyone who works on a set? Do you know anyone who might be distantly connected to a writer? Can I have a coffee with you? Can I pick your brain? Can I get guidance and information? Because those relationships are so essential to success in our industry. And I think that's why Tanya and I and other Latinas have created these groups for ourselves, is because we recognize the importance of us all locking arms and helping to drag each other up.
Fantastic. We have time for one more question. I know Marilena had a question in the chat. Marilena?
Thank you, Chair. I was curious as to what the Spanish language networks and entertainment industry, how is that connected, or what's the relationship between from the executives, everything in that world, to our English language entertainment industry? Are there direct connections, or is it like two completely different worlds? Are there opportunities or not?
There's a bit of a disconnect because that a lot of those productions are sourced in Mexico, Venezuela, in Colombia, and then they're imported. So they're a lot of them don't. I mean, the actors do work here, and the makeup. It's a different lane in a way, and uh, uh, they're very like supported and watched, but it's a different type of Latina we're after, like a non-Spanish speaker. Sometimes, I mean, not really. I'm after every Latina ever, you know. But mi mamá va a ver Univision. She will never watch my show. I mean, she should never watch my show because she'd be like, "Niña, ¿qué haces?" So, but we're trying to take up space as American Latinas, you know, like because that it's a link to Latin America in a different way, and that's also has been historically a way to relegate us and sort of dismiss us. Pues they have Univision, they have Telemundo, you know, and the productions are that they don't get paid. Sometimes they're non-union, like it's a whole mess over there. We want to take up space like Americans, even though I'm not American. I have a green card though. I have a green card. but but I'm American, right? Because I'm Mexican, right? We're all Americans. But like we want to take up space like that, and that when we're talking about those type of shows, union shows, and mostly in English. Although now it keeps getting messy with international, but anyway, I'll let you, Alina, say something.
Yeah, I've been seeing this really interesting thing where companies that are based like in Mexico are asking for, you know, Latina writers in the States. And they're saying, oh, you don't even need to speak Spanish. We just want you to write, and then we'll translate it, and then we'll ship it back to the States. So there has been a really interesting back and forth that's happening. But that's very much because of the internet, because of streamers, because of the great content that's being created internationally that you're seeing on places like Netflix. So there's a kind of blurring of the lines, which is fantastic because hopefully that will allow, you know, writers who are from other countries who have those credits to be able to cross over and to move back and forth between the two spaces.
And also the concern is with streamers is that the internal, you know, having international programming, like everyone said, is great, but then they just say, well, we have the diversity here. So, you know, we have these people from Spain. And so, you know, in our study, we don't consider people from Spain as Latinos because that doesn't fall under the definition, right? So we're not, in our study, we don't talk about Hispanics. So we are specific to talking about Latinx representation. And so the concern is that the companies can say, the studios can say, well, you know, we have this Spanish speaking content or Spanish language content, you know, that should satisfy you. But like what everyone on the panel was saying is that we have a very specific experience here as U.S. Latinos, right? And so you don't have to be born here to be considered a U.S. Latino or Latinx person. You just have to be living here. And so we want those stories to be told. We want to have those shows that are talking about the experience of living in the United States.
Thank you. This has been fantastic. I'm going to make an admission right here, and my daughter will probably kill me, but this piece of Unseen Latinas was not my idea. It was Wendy Carrillo's idea, because I'm a former union organizer. I was really focusing, and a lawyer, so I'm focusing on, you know, low wage jobs and Latinas in the law. And Wendy's like, oh, we have to do Hollywood, and we did. And I'm embarrassed to say, so my daughter, who I love, is, you know, a PA at Netflix, and so she's actually watching. She's like, "This is your best one yet." So, you guys, she actually, you will appreciate this. If I didn't see your personalities coming out, she goes, "I feel a little less crazy now." So, you provided that for one Latina who's trying to get in the industry. So know that. Thank you all so much. If you want to stay on, we're going to go to panel 2. And bring some, you may want to add additional. I'm more than happy to add you in when we go back to comment. But with that, we're going to move on to hear from Nancy Ray Stone, who is the Deputy Director of the California Film and Television Tax Credit Program. Please begin when you're ready, Nancy.
Hello, hi, can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you for inviting me to speak on this panel. I'm just going to give you a little background on the Film Commission and tell you about the programs that we administer. The Film Commission enhances California's status as a leader in the motion picture, television, and commercial production industry. It supports projects of all sizes and budgets and focuses on activities that stimulate and preserve production jobs, spending, and tax revenues in California. The California Film and Television Tax Credit Program's mission is to increase economic development in California by creating jobs through the allocation of tax credits for projects that might otherwise leave the state. The tax credits are allocated mainly for below-the-line jobs, basic crew jobs, not above-the-line jobs. The original tax credit program was launched in 2009. It was followed by Program 2.0 in 2015 and Program 3.0 in 2019. As of March of this year, the CFC has allocated a total of $2.4 billion in tax credits to 572 projects, which are on track to spend almost $18 billion in the state and employ 146,000 cast and crew. In addition to promoting jobs and economic development, the tax credit program includes a career readiness requirement that invests in our filmmakers, artists, and technicians of tomorrow. Tax credit projects in Program 2.0 hired 179 interns, paid interns, totaling 30,000 internship hours. In addition, 358 students have participated in professional skills tours, while 36 faculty members have participated in externships and in classroom workshops. And we've been working statewide with high schools, community college, and career-based learning programs with a very diverse group of individuals to expose them to the different jobs that exist in the film business. And I was hoping to show you a slideshow. It didn't quite work out, but what was included in the slideshow were photos of some of these participants. We had students from Crenshaw High School who were with director Ava DuVernay while she was filming A Wrinkle in Time there. We had students from LA County High School on the set of a series called Good Trouble. We had participants from Venice Arts, fabulous career-based learning program in Venice, California, doing a professional skills tour on the set of a Showtime series. And Dorsey High School's film and animation class on the set of Legion. That's just a few examples of the hundreds of hours that we've been able to offer to students throughout California to the film industry. The career readiness requirement has also earned over $460,000 in financial contributions from our tax credit shows, which have gone toward paid internships for college students through the Foundation for California Community Colleges, and for high school students through the California Department of Arts, Media, and Entertainment programs. A portion of those funds also provided scholarships for underserved youth to attend the California Summer School for the Arts, CISA. And I was going to show you a video of Yvette, who is a Mexican-American who never dreamed she could go to college. She felt it was impossible to picture herself ever going to a higher education school. As a result of receiving a CISA scholarship from our career readiness funds, she was able to spend time on a college campus, attend a college day event, apply to college, and now she's the first person in her family to ever go to college. So she is just one of many success stories that we've had of career readiness participants who have gone on to college, to careers in the industry. So it's very exciting to see the progress that these students have made once they realized what the opportunities were in this business. Program 3.0 now includes a more robust training program focused on individuals from underserved communities. These individuals work with our training providers to obtain the skills necessary to compete and thrive in the entertainment business. So far, we've had 41 projects that have contributed over $600,000 to this program. The program's first phase includes teaching life skills, followed by technical training for careers in the industry. Participants are then matched with mentors in their field. And this kind of speaks to what I heard earlier. A lot of people are kind of given an opportunity and then they don't really have someone who's there to support them along the way. And this program will provide mentors in the field that these individuals are interested in so they can help and support them, provide connections to help them really get good jobs and start a career in the industry. Once they complete their life skills education or technical training and they work on film projects, paid film projects, they will become eligible to become union members. One thing that I wanted to also show you was a video of, well, actually, I did talk about that, so let me go on. Let's talk about Manifest Works. Manifest Works is one of our Pilot Skills Program training providers. Their clients identify as 44% Latino or Hispanic, 31% Black, and 14% white, with the rest identifying as other ethnicities. This year, Manifest Works teamed up with the IATSE Sound Local 695 to place individuals into a sound department training program. Local 695 currently has 25 individuals in their sound video training program, and out of that group, 8 are Latinx and 3 are Latina. So I reached out to the 3 women, the 3 Latinas who got the opportunity for this to work with in sound departments on film sets, Venus, Juliana, and Yasel, and they told me about their experiences. All of them expressed their desire to break into film and television production, and although they all had production experience, they found themselves working low-paying, non-union film jobs or any type of job they could find to support themselves. They all expressed gratitude for being able to get into this training program and have access to mentors and other resources. Venus spoke for the group when she said that the experience provided the professional atmosphere, income, and training that she really needed. Yasel added, "I'm very grateful for this program. It helps people who don't have an easy way in." And Juliana revealed that one of the things she learned was to be persistent but not annoying, which is important in this business if you're trying to get work. So that's just a couple examples of how the Pilot Skills Training Program is working to bring underrepresented individuals and give them the tools that they need to successfully compete for jobs in this industry. Program 3.0 also requires tax credit projects to submit a summary of their voluntary programs to increase the representation of women and minorities. Producers consistently state that they're focused on increasing representation among writers, directors, the cast, and the crew. And a description of these programs was given to the committee members, and it's also available on the CFC website. So just to wrap it up, the Film Commission administers the tax credit program to provide credits to continue to grow film and TV projects in California. Our diversity requirement, career readiness initiative, and pilot skills training program all promote inclusiveness and provide opportunities for individuals from diverse backgrounds to learn, train, and obtain the credentials needed for careers in the entertainment industry. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Arlen Valdivia, the Senior Director of State and Local Government Affairs for the Motion Picture Association, who advocates on behalf of the 6 major Hollywood studios, Disney, Netflix, Paramount, Sony, Universal, and Warner Brothers.
Good morning, Chairwoman Gonzalez and members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to be part of this important discussion and to be able to share the virtual stage with so many amazing Latinas. My name is Arlen Valdivia, and I'm here on behalf of the Motion Picture Association and our member companies. MPA is committed to encouraging great storytelling that reflects the viewpoints and experiences of all creators and audiences, which is why we are working hard with our member studios to address diversity, gender parity, authentic cultural representation, pipeline recruitment opportunities from underrepresented communities in our industry. By establishing programs that promote a diverse talent pipeline and creating new partnerships and sharing what we learn, we are leading by example. One important role that we at the MPA play is ensuring that the industry has demographic data to demonstrate the importance of diverse audiences to the economics of the industry. Part of our work on this important issue is the theme report. our annual analysis and survey of the theatrical and home entertainment market environment. One notable takeaway from recent reports is that Latino audiences are among one of the nation's biggest movie fans, accounting for an outsized share of the box office revenue relative to their portion of the population. This data helps cement the business case for stronger diversity efforts, and recent years have seen a significant commercial success for movies such as Black Panther, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Coco, Crazy Rich Asians, and the Fast and Furious franchise, and not to mention last year's Best Picture winner, Parasite, further validating the business case for diverse storytelling. What's more, is 9 years ago, the MPA established our own diversity, equity, and inclusion program, 3 years before #UpWithTheWhites, and 5 years before the Me Too and Time's Up. Because our members proactively supported the MPA, playing a constructive role in forging relationships with organizations that work to diversify the creative pipeline and are ensuring important constituencies, studios, policymakers, multicultural creator organizations can communicate and collaborate on our shared goals. Today, our coalition of multicultural partners has grown to almost 50 organizations, with a significant number primarily focused on increased access and opportunities for the Latinx community. But of course, what matters more is what our member studios are doing. We are proud that each studio at the MPA has its own robust corporate policies, senior level diversity and inclusion focused personnel, and other programs to diversify the creative pipeline and foster representative storytelling. And I know I only have a few minutes, but I quickly want to showcase some of the amazing work that our members are doing, and this is just the tip of the iceberg. I can spend an hour or more talking about their great programs and initiatives. Viacom-CBS has a robust set of diversity and inclusion initiatives across all of its platforms, including Paramount Studios, CBS Studios and News, BT, Nickelodeon, to more accurately reflect diversity both on screen and behind the camera. CBS Studios has announced that in its development and writers' room, by the 2021 and 2022 season, 25% of the script development budget will be allocated to diverse creators, and 40% of the writers will be diverse. Netflix has created a fund for creative equity to create more opportunities for members of underrepresented communities. They will invest $100 million over the next 5 years in a combination of external organizations with strong track records of setting underrepresented communities up for success in TV and films, as well as bespoke Netflix programs that will help identify and train and provide job placement for up-and-coming talent globally. Attention will be particularly focused on Black, Indigenous, people of color, women, the LGBTQ+ community, and differently abled people. For almost a decade, Sony Pictures Entertainment has undertaken a multi-pronged approach to diversity inclusion in every area of its business by leveraging different perspectives from its filmmakers to its content to vendors and their employees. Most notably, Sony's Diverse Directors Program, now in its 7th year, has enabled the studio to identify emerging directors from historically marginalized populations, including women and people from diverse ethnic backgrounds, and has resulted in numerous programs, graduates actively directing for Sony Pictures and throughout the industry. Warner Media's approach to inclusion across program and its content is focused on on-screen representation, cultivating storytellers, and growing their production creative pipeline at Warner Media. They have a history of partnering with producers and creators and content creators to ensure greater diversity in storytelling in the following upcoming projects. I'm sure we're all very excited about. We cannot wait. June 11th. They're also having a Latinx remix of Father of the Bride in development, written by Matt Lopez. Sasha Calle was just cast as DC's universe first ever Latina Supergirl, starring in the upcoming film The Flash. And director Ángel Manuel Soto is in development of Blue Beetle, DC's first Latino super movie. NBC Universal has launched a broad range of diverse talent programs for writers, directors, composers, and more to identify and engage creative talent from a wide array of backgrounds. NBCU is in partnership with the Gina Davis Institute of Gender and Media and the U.S. School of Engineering, Global Talent and Inclusion, and is piloting a spell check for bias resource to help support more authentic Latinx on-screen representation and casting opportunities during the early stages of the development process. Creative advisors participating in this pilot program to help develop software criteria include actress and producer Tate del Castillo, Harness, co-founded by America Ferrera, Bloomhouse Productions, Brownstone Productions, Lord Willer Packer Productions, and the New York Latino Film Festival. And the Walt Disney Company has many programs and policies to address these issues and to diversify the creative pipeline, including the longstanding creative talent development that has helped launch the career of many industry professionals, including writer-producer Peter Moreta and directors Athena Fuentes, and the new Launchpad program providing opportunities for underrepresented directors to create content for their Disney Plus streaming service, and recently announced commitment to inclusion standards. Everyone here shares the goal of promoting and storytelling that reflects the diversity of the American experience, especially the Latina experience. And together, I'm confident we can continue to make significant progress that reflects all voices and all stories. And I appreciate your time. Thank you for having me. And if I spoke too fast, it's my half Mexican, half Nicaraguense, coming out.
We all speak too
I have
fast.
a lot of member companies. I want to make sure they all get the same love.
We all speak too fast. It's okay. Thank you. We have one more panelist. Last but certainly not least, we're going to hear from Brenda Victoria Castillo, the president and CEO of the National Hispanic Media Coalition. Brenda?
Thank you, Madam Chair, Lorena Gonzalez, and Select Committee on Latina Inequities. I am so thrilled to be here today with all of you amazing and powerful women of influence. I am Brenda Victoria Castillo, the first female president and CEO of NHMC. I am Latinx Native woman. My pronouns are she, her, ella, and I'm coming to you from Whittier, California, which is Tongva land. The National Hispanic Media Coalition was founded 35 years ago in order to eliminate hate, discrimination, and racism towards the Latino community. We educate and increase visibility of Latinos from our policy work in Washington, D.C. to our media advocacy work in Hollywood, where we collaborate, create, and connect Latinx talent with the entertainment industry. We work very closely with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus, and I heard somebody earlier talk about Congressman Joaquin Castro, who has led the fight. At NHMC, we focus on all forms of media because it is one of the most powerful institutions that affects attitudes, values, and beliefs of society. How Latinx are represented is how we are treated in real life, and we are not treated very well. You can draw a line from the pervasive lack of positive Latino representation on the screen to the rise of hate crimes against our community, including the massacre that took place in El Paso, Texas in 2019. There is a dangerous connection between racist rhetoric and the negative images of Latinos as criminals and invaders that Americans see on the screen. When Trump in 2016 said that Mexicans were criminals and rapists, hate crime went up. And that's just not me that's saying this. These are FBI reports. Sometimes we're not represented at all. We are excluded. There are some shows right now on the air, whether it's television or streaming, that are in Los Angeles County, where we are more than 50% of the population, yet not one recurring Latinx character or not one Latinx writer in the room. When our children do not see themselves up on the big screen, or if they only see themselves in negative roles, imagine what that does to a child's psyche. It would mean so much, and this is what hurts me the most. It would mean so much for our children to see themselves on the big screen so they can believe in themselves, because if you see it, you can be it. So this is why nearly 20 years ago, NHMC created educational and workforce programs like the series Scriptwriters Program and the Latinx Dream Showcase that creates, collaborates, and connects the Latinx talent with the entertainment industry. We have had many Latinas who have gone through our program. We're very proud of our program, and it's very successful. Sierra Ornelas, who's the executive producer, and her series just started, Rutherford Falls. Sylvia Olivias, who's the executive producer of Elena of Avalor, and now she's with Netflix. And you've already heard today from Judalina. She's our alum. Zaira Ferrer wrote for Tijuana, and Selena, the series, hired two of our female writers, Jessica Lopez and Pamela Garcia Rooney. But if I can just leave you with this, because in ending, in order for Latinas to be fully represented in media, we need to get us at the most highest level of influence and power, like the boardroom, president and CEO positions, and media ownership. Most of the entertainment industry is located in California, where we're more than 40% of the population, and a lot of them are located right here in LA County, where we are more than 50% of the population. I know that there was a bill that was passed in California that talked about corporations having one underrepresented board of director on their board in the state of California. And since that bill passed, women have increased, the number of women have increased 40%, but Latinas are only 3%. So we have to be very careful and always on the words that we're using when we use diversity, inclusion, underrepresentative, because many times when they're talking about women, they're not talking about Latinas, and we are women. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you, and what a perfect segue. One of the reasons we have this committee is because we know for change to happen, we're going to have to be intentional about Latinas. We've seen a number of diversity initiatives that I think, as the first panel said, Latinas aren't seen as diverse for whatever reason. They're talking about someone else. And here in California, where we passed rules about diversity on boards, it still has not. Latinas are the most underrepresented, even when you're trying to get women on boards or people of color on boards. So we got to fight for that intentionality, just to try to become more representative. I have a question for Arlen, and it pretty much has to do with how we ended that. So much of the discussion is always focused on in front of the camera and production. Those jobs often involve skilled craftspeople, special trades, but there's so many jobs within the studios, in the offices that are entry-level jobs where someone could learn in advance. What are the studios doing to get Latinas into the front office jobs?
I'm so glad that you asked that, because I think looking at the entertainment industry, most people think, writers, producers, directors, and actors, and the entertainment industry has its own sort of ecosystem, right? There's lawyers, there's accountants, there's chefs, there's set medics, there's all sorts of different jobs, and each of the various programs have numerous internships, fellowships, and programs that allow folks to come in on the corporate level, the executive level. And so, like I said, we're happy to walk through all of them, but with 6-member companies and a limited amount of time, I can't list them all, but I do know that all of our member companies have various programs to have people come in through the pipeline, and I'm happy to set up time with you or other members of the committee to walk through what those programs are.
We would love to get those programs, I think a detailed accounting of the programs, especially as we're looking towards the future of any kind of future tax credit that we're designing here in California. I think the diversity aspect is one we need to really drill down on, so that would be helpful. We're going to move on. Suzette, you had a question?
Yes, thank you. So a USC study found that films with underrepresented leads and co-leads receive less resources than films with white leads. Can you speak to this? Is there any background you can provide as to how production budgets are allocated to films centered around underrepresented communities, such as Latinos and Latinas? And can you speak to how projects are greenlighted and budgets are approved? And lastly, what can we do beyond the tax credit that will help us retain more of our industry in California as other states are trying to compete with California, like Georgia? What can we do beyond the tax credit to be more competitive in California for growing the industry?
I can take a stab at that. I mean, I personally can't speak to how individual greenlighting and resources are allocated for the trade association, but we do believe that diversity should be in consideration with greenlighting process, and we're proud of the role, again, that we play in providing sort of that data that allows for making the business case for more diverse storytelling. And California is lucky that we've got great climate and different types of geography, but I think outside of the tax credit, I think it's also the skills of the people that are here and investing in programs like the National Hispanic Media Coalition, like NALEAP, like Ghetto Film School, Hollywood CPR will only build the talent pipeline for us to recruit from.
Thank you.
Wendy?
I can speak to that as well.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I think that it's clear that there's so many opportunities for underrepresented individuals to have incredible careers in the motion picture industry. We are working very closely with the California Department of Education, Arts, Media, and Entertainment initiative because we realize that a lot of students in high school don't know what these jobs are. And so our career readiness program is aimed at exposing them to these jobs, which is one step in the right direction. And the other step in the right direction is outreach to families. What we're finding is that while we may get students excited about jobs in the industry, their parents don't understand that you can have an incredible career in the film business. And they don't consider working in the film business perhaps as a good job option for their students. So I think we need to also outreach to parents and families so they understand the opportunities that exist. For instance, visual effects is one area that has, risen 300% in the last 5 years in terms of job opportunities. And, everyone who's seen, Spider-Man perhaps doesn't realize that for one shot, it may have taken 30 people to go from the original idea of it all the way to the creation of the shot that you see on the screen. There's so many below the line creative and technical jobs that exist that people are not even aware of. And so I think we need to do a lot of outreach and education so that people understand these jobs are there and we can train them for those jobs.
Wendy?
Yes, thank you for that. In preparing for this hearing, and also incredibly timely that this Sunday are the Oscars, and the Oscars are taking place at Union Station in my district. And there's an incredible article in the LA Times titled, "Yes, the Oscar nominations are more diverse, but they largely leave out Latinos." And I found that to be really fascinating in that before there's the trending hashtag Oscar so white that's been prevalent for the past few years now. And it's great to see Viola Davis become the most nominated Black actress with her lead role for Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Stephen Yuen is now the first Asian American lead actor nominated for his work in Minari. Reese Ahmad holds a distinction for being the first Muslim to be nominated for lead actor for his role in Sound of Metal. And there's so many great examples, but there are no Latinos, and specifically no Latinas. And the only category in which we see the Latinx or Latino experience are in the category of foreign films from Latin America, international foreign films. And so it's interesting to note that despite the consumption of Latinos, which has been spoken about on this hearing in terms of especially the Fast and the Furious franchise, which is, there was a study made a while ago that Latinos continue to watch those series because we love fast cars and it's a great film franchise. But that even in the Oscars nomination, the only way that we see ourselves is actually foreign, not American, right? It's like the Latin experience is outside. And so it's not necessarily a question for everyone, just a thought. And if you have thoughts on that, I find it fascinating in terms of changing the narrative for Latinas within the United States, within the stories that are told about us being in this country, the international and intersectional experiences of Latinas in storytelling. Vida, which we heard from earlier, is filmed in my district. And so it has a lot of vibrancy in terms of our experiences as Mexican Americans or Chicanos or Latinx. And I just find it fascinating that despite all that, even in the Oscars, we're still unseen here. And I'm curious if the panelists have any thoughts on that, especially because it's also so timely.
No.
No comments.
Just a notice. It's okay.
I think Brenda wants to say something, but I don't know if her mic's turned on.
my mind, but what I want to say is, well, first of all, shameful, right? I mean, right here in Los Angeles, the Oscars are taking place, and year after year, this occurs. I have to say, it was April Rain that came up with the hashtag Oscars So White, and I was trying to remember right now the African-American actor who came out. And he said he's boycotting the Oscars. He's not going to attend. He didn't ask anybody's permission. He didn't go to an organization for support. He just came out and said that. Sometimes I feel we do not have that one powerful voice that's actually in the industry, that's not afraid if they speak up, they're not going to have to pay for it because the phone will stop ringing. I feel we don't have that representative. I want to hear from everybody else, but you know, we can only do so much. NHMC has boycotted the Oscars. We have protested and picketed, but we're an advocacy group. Where's that one person of influence that's well-renowned around the world that's Latinx who will speak up?
You know, Brenda, that is so powerful and so important. While we were putting together this hearing, we had a number of individuals who are in front of the screen who wanted to participate and even agreed to participate, and at different times got afraid to participate. And I think that's telling. I think, you know, we don't have that voice that protects other voices to speak up, in a sense, as well, that megastar voice, if you will, to protect others who know there's a problem, but realize that if they become the troublemaker, it may affect their career. So it's something I think we struggle with in general in the Latino community, and but in this place in particular.
Madam Chair, did you say they were fearful to come on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had a number of Latinas who, you know, were interested, talked to us about participating, gave us background, but didn't want to speak. And, you know, that's understandable. I come from organizing workers, and so that's so typical in any industry. They know there's a problem, but they don't want any, you know, of course, you would never want your career affected, or there were just a variety of things that were told to us. So I just think that's telling in this industry.
I remember it was Spike Lee. Spike Lee came out and said, I'm boycotting the Oscars. Boom. Went wild on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, we're still looking for it. We shouldn't get to that point. I mean, the bottom line is this: we shouldn't get to that point. I'm going to go to public comment now, and take. I don't know if we have any public comment in the queue. Do we have a traditional operator? Okay, we will look. Operator, is there any public comment?
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you wish to comment via the phone on today's call, you may press 1 and then 0 at this time. Again, if you would like to comment via the phone, you may press 1 and then 0 at this time. One moment for our first comment. I'm sorry, the person who queued up must have pressed 1-0 again, and that removes you from the comment queue. So if you want to go ahead and press 1 and then 0 one more time. And one moment for our first comment.
Having problems with the phone line.
Line 13, your line is open. Please go ahead.
And I'm from Shasta County, California. It's amazing that Lorena Gonzalez is allowed to bring this to the floor to discussion.
Can you please cut this? This is not, if somebody would like public comment based on the...
I have a public, I have a
Operator,
okay,
can you please turn that off?
Let me skip.
We're not going to tolerate... We're not going to tolerate callers who aren't calling in to participate in this discussion. If you'd like to participate in the discussion, stating your name, your organization, That's fine. If not, we're dealing with the technical problems that we often deal with in these committee hearings. Operator, is there any other callers?
There are no comments at this time.
Wonderful. We'll bring it back for some closing discussion by the members. I just want to thank all the panelists today. This was eye-opening for me. It was a really eye-opening, hopeful, disheartening, all at the same time. I want to note, I made this mistake. I started off on this mistake today and just stuck with it. I do not mean to disrespect my fellow Latinas by calling them by their first name. They are all assembly members and senators. I just started by doing that. We were having a conversation, so I continued, but we often face that in our lives from other people. So I want to be sure that my point in doing that was we were just having a discussion. It's sometimes hard because they're all friends and we forget where we are, but this was a fabulous discussion, and I want to point out, as with all of our hearings, we had one exception because Nancy's over at the Film Commission, but otherwise, all the presenters were Latina. And that's an important feature of what we're doing in the Unseen Latina Project, because the initiative shows that, yes, we are underrepresented. We do have a lot of work to do. But we also want to showcase that we're out there. We have the researchers. We have the academics who have done the work. We have the people in every single aspect, in front of the camera, behind the camera, writing. We have women who are heading organizations and advocating for this, and at the at the Motion Picture Association. So it's really important for us to point that out, because when you are intentional in saying, I know that there are qualified Latinas out there, guess what? You can find them. We always do. And so I want to thank the panelists today who participated, who once again help us showcase the broad talent we have in our community. Suzette?
I'll just be brief. You know, the first part and first step in making change and making a difference is just shining light on an issue and on the problem. And I just want to applaud the committee, all of the panelists, for stepping up, for some of us being the first. And across a variety of industries, it's really hard to be the first. And I'm just thankful to be on this committee and to also be a part of shining a light on the inequities for Latinas around California. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I want to thank our chairwoman, Assemblywoman Gonzalez, for this incredible conversation. I think I'll just poke a little fun and say, when someone said that some parents don't know, the importance of, or how incredible a career in Hollywood for Latinas can be. I think you're experiencing that yourself. I want to give a shout out to a friend of mine, Lauren Perez, who's one of the original organizers with SAG-AFTRA, who was flying back and forth between Los Angeles and Miami to unionize and organize Telemundo soap opera stars to ensure that there was parity between English language American-made soap operas and Spanish language American-made soap operas. And so it's, despite the language difference, the pay inequity is still a conversation that still needs to be had in terms of what is valued and what talent is valued. And really, again, I would add the advertising dollars that come around when to ensure that a show is successful is also part of a larger conversation, and ensuring that television studios as well as movie studios really put marketing dollars behind shows where there are Latinas as the lead characters, where there are Latinas as the writers, where there are Latinas as the showrunners, to ensure that it's not set up to fail. And I think that's a big part of the conversation, especially when we look at the California tax credit, in ensuring that those diversity numbers are included in reports to ensure that the funding and tax dollars are actually going to proper representation for the stories that we see on TV, the stories that we see on the big screen, and a new emerging market for digital platforms like Hulu and Netflix and everything in between. And so it's an incredible space right now, and I think we have an opportunity now that we have more Latinas in the legislature, more women in the legislature, more diversity in the legislature, to ensure that we put our values where they matter, and that we continue to push towards a more equitable California where our stories are told by us and not by others. So again, thank you for this incredible conversation. I learned a lot, and I'm really looking forward to continuing the discussion.
Thank you. Maria Elena, would you like to?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and members of the committee. I would just like to ask each of the panelists to submit one thing that you think our state legislature should focus on. And then I would commit that the Latino caucus with 29 legislators could adopt any one of those as a priority for us to move forward. Of course, with Assembly Member Gonzalez, but there were so many great ideas that you all brought up, so many issues you brought up, but help us narrow it down so that we could use our strength and our voices and representation in a much more focused way. So thank you all very much. It was really, really wonderful.
Thank you. And we'll pose that question to all the panelists, but we'll do it in writing so that you can really think about what it is that is the one thing, as we look to maybe a future expansion of the film tax credit, as you look to different things we can do legislatively, what is the one thing we could do to help ensure that the diversity includes Latinas, that diversity matters, that we, in all aspects of this industry, that we start to see some equities. So we will pose that in writing and gather those, and we will, at the end, of course, our Unseen Latinas, we will have an overall report. But before then, there are things we can do. We do have some power, limited as it might be. We have some power to make change, and that's what we're trying to do here. So I want to thank all the panelists and the members. I know Kevin McCarty was on. He texted me. For some reason, he wasn't showing up on my screen as well. And Ash Kalra, who is on. And I want to thank my staffer, Jasmine, who worked really hard to pull this together. So thank you for all your hard work, and thank you everybody who contributed to this really important conversation. I look forward to part 2, because I know we're not done with this one, especially looking at any monies we may spend in California in the future. So thank you so much, and have a nice day.